Lion Gaming that was so strong. Is that going to be the difference maker here?
I think it certainly could be, right? Like, if you look at their regional performance domestically in split number 1, Isurus Gaming from 4th made the victory, but were kind of unexpected there. But Yeti has been on teams with Oddie, with Saya, the big names from this region before. And here today, honestly, that's a big boon. The pickup, DFM already starting the series off here in 0-1. They're looking like the favorites coming in.
Well, we'll see whether Isurus can play up to expectations already. The bans have come through Aurelia and the Yasuo, and the Lucian being taken away by DetonatioN FocusMe, Isurus Gaming, to get rid of Saros' Heimerdinger, the Thresh, and the Pantheon that we haven't seen so far this play-in stage. And what is going to be the first lock in? The Echo first pick.
0-3 currently. Analyst Desk had a few words to say about it. Echo coming in as a hot favorite into Worlds 2019, but hasn't seen the greatest amount of success. But I will say, like, taking a look at the stuff that's being hovered right now, Teemo actually not a troll pick there for Bugax, has pulled it out in playoff series. But going up into DetonatioN FocusMe, they are a little bit of a weird team. The Heimerdinger, the Pantheon was kind of played before it was cool. Now we are in a patch where everybody kind of considers it broken. Absolutely 100% ban rate here, but getting through with it, Ezreal and Gragas locked in for Isurus.
Now, I find this really interesting because I'm glad Jake brought it up on the desk. Good old Spawn back there saying, we haven't seen the Elise. Feels like she's been replaced by the Echo. If I had been casting any other games back in Korea, of course, where I'm from, this would have been a Renekton Elise follow-up immediately. But it doesn't actually happen, and instead we are able to go back to DetonatioN FocusMe after the Ezreal and Gragas lock-ins for the Lovers duo, though, on the bottom side of the map. The Rakan and the Xayah coming in, and the Rakan Ants are going to be there with the Leona.
And I think this is sort of weird, right? Like, you can take a look at Leona into the Rakan. Like, that is a tried and true matchup you see with a different AD carry that makes a lot of sense. This is a bottom lane that, as I mentioned earlier, like, Isurus likes to play around them. Warungalus gets a lot of resources down there, so it makes sense to lock down like a Leona lane. The counter pick is good, but pairing it with an Ezreal is not something you would have expected here, but maybe just hedging their bets. You know, scaling is fine going up against something like the Xayah Rakan.
Yeah, I feel like the Leona was more of a pivot pickup because they saw the Rakan right there, and you can follow him around when he's battle dancing his way to success. What I would love to see from DetonatioN FocusMe is for them to actually flex this Echo properly. I mean, last time we saw the theoretical Echo mid coming in with the Nocturne there, and then that was switched over. Vidius very excited in the caster lounge, of course, not the item build, but when it got picked up, definitely a good thing there for him. I want to see it actually flexed here. I want to see them make sure that they get this Echo into a position where they really want it, as the the Nocturne has been banned by Isurus Gaming.
So
what
surprising
to get rid of it.
that one's going to hit the bench. But talking about like the Echo Flex, right? Like specific matchups, this is playable. I will also note that Saros, back in the LJL, was playing this pick like much like the Pantheon. He played it in old school matchups before the most recent buffs in the mid lane. And those matchups like the Syndra, we just saw that game with Mammoth locking into Syndra. The Flex was available. It does really depend on this pick right now, what they want to lock in for Saya if they do choose to pick his champion. That like Echo could it be an option? Maybe.
We're going for Nobles here on Isurus' side as the Garen being hovered. Probably not going to get locked in as the Gnar is going to be picked up. Bugax going to be able to grab that for the top side, picking it away from Evi more than anything else. We saw Evi doing that to Vizicachi earlier on today, and now it's going to happen once again.
Evi's got 11 plays domestically, and was the Kennen matchup, and it was kind of that weird team fight, right? Like around the bottom side of mid lane, where Gnar gets a huge ulti back onto multiple people, then Kennen does exactly the same thing. So you see the power in this pick already. Kale's been banned today, but...
Yeah, and Kale has been a favorite for Evi as well domestically. He's had a few games on it so far, and that was in summer, of course, so relatively recently. And Kale has gone through a few changes over the last 3 patches. We'll have to see how it's going to do here as Saros is going to lock away the Karma, one of his favorite picks, of course, in the mid lane over in Japan.
Yeah, and it is kind of interesting, right? Karma received a couple of nerfs recently. Less interesting, the Ryze, but...
This composition is probably the least interesting. It's the classic Ryze-Gnar combination. We've been seeing it for many, many years. Looking over the other side, though, you've got the craziness of the Kayle and maybe an Echo that can win a game.
Yeah, maybe I hope so if you're a LJL fan here. But let's take a look at some of the picks specifically, right? The Kayle you mentioned, Jat was saying earlier, kind of easing the burden. Kayle has always been like a late game super monstrous champion, will take over everything on the Rift, and getting extra range early kind of eases the burden. We saw with a Gnar pick and then the Kennen from Vizicachi earlier today, like the range matchups do deal with it best, and then we'll just become like a huge side lane threat that can actually group, right? Like you look at the side laners that do succeed successful things. The Camille, if she gets a flank off, can one-hit an 80 carry. Kayle is just bonkers, right? If he gets to his items, there's no doubting that Evie will be a force to be reckoned with. And when they lock in the Karma, the Rakan, these two shield-based supportive champions can just press the E buttons on his head and let Evie right-click some champions. Honestly, if the game is going to be slow, that's a good strategy.
Yep, well, we'll see how the Kayle is going to do, of course. Change so that she's a little bit stronger early and a little bit less oppressive in the latest stages of the game. A little bit compressed, one could say, as far as how she's going to go. Flatten, a much better way to do it. Thank you very much, Ejim. So, by the way, when are you coming to the LCK? You can teach me some words over there as well, my friend.
Yeah, okay. Yeah? I'll be Baby Smithy.
Yeah, we're gonna need Baby Smithy. I'm gonna be recruiting as many of you as possible over the course of these play-ins. But Isurus Gaming versus Detonation FocusMe. Let's get onto the Rift for our fourth game of the day.
And okay, this is going to be another Dark Harvest Echo pickup. A lot of people saw that as kind of one of the solo queue options, you know, get a couple of extra stacks, extra kills, can run rampant all over the place. Electrocute, a little bit more consistent, but this is going to be the second one we've seen of the day, so Steel following in the footsteps.
Okay, Audi getting a little bit of attention here from Evie. He's just going to throw out a bit of a love tap. Of course, the Kleptomancy coming in on the Kayle. Standard banker build, and I don't think that Inara is going to be able to offer that much of a threat unless you go for the full laning Gnar build. Are we going to see Rage Blade, Blade of the Ruined King, crazy stuff from Bughax? I don't know. I don't think so, because he's going to have to play for teamfights and try and play around this Kayle more than anything else.
Yeah, I think it would be interesting. You do have options when it comes to the Gnar, right? You can go for the PTA, play much more aggressive. Like a jungler like Gragas can make things happen early. We've seen, and the analyst S was talking about it, like the comparison of Echo to Elise, the two mage junglers on the current patch. Elise, heavily early game, whereas Echo scales that little bit better. Gragas certainly has the advantage, but in looking at this comp from Isurus, you see a Leona, you see a Gragas, even a Ryze, like the CC setup. Kayle isn't really the region you're looking to attack, right? Like getting on top of a Xayah Rakan, the Leona into this matchup can be super oppressive, so I would expect Isurus Gaming, traditionally they like to play around the bot side. That could be the play here versus DFM.
Yeah, and based on how these compositions have been put together, I'm looking at DFM and I'm seeing a lot of 4-1 options, given the fact that you are going to be most likely putting an Ardent Sensor on the Karma, and that way you've got Udapon in a great position on the Xayah to get damage down and to be safe in a siege scenario, and you put Kayle in that side lane. What are Isurus Gaming's options as far as answering the playstyle that DFM have put on the table?
Yeah, I think kind of a lot and kind of not, right? They do have like double side lane potential. They have the Ryze, they have the Gnar. As long as they don't get too far behind, Kayle will obviously be the difficult one to deal with, but Karma not so much. So 1-3-1, as you get into the mid game, like if you want to slow down the game, that is an option, absolutely. But in terms of like disengage, the one thing I will say, right, when you look at a 4-1 versus a 1-3-1, traditionally, it's about forcing, getting caught in the 3, the mid lane. Like, that is where you lose the game as the 3. And there's a lot of force on the other side. You have Echo, he's just, like, free as hell, right? He goes in, you can just R backwards. The commit is just not there. You have the Rakan in Gang's hands, and this is a guy that has been super big for this roster, right? He makes things happen for them, and Gragas is kind of all they've got.
Well, we'll see whether they can make that one work. The ganking duo, of course, of the Echo and the Rakan. Just thinking about the possible options there with CC lockdown and gap close is just terrifying.
Rakan just likes friends. He was released with Xayah, and then he likes a buddy to dive in first, and then he gets to go second.
Would you say that Rakan is the most extroverted champion that we have in the roster of League of Legends?
Extroverted?
Yeah, just likes to make as many friends as possible.
Maybe Ivan, though.
Oh, Ivan definitely is a friend.
But his friends don't speak back, so it's a bit of a one-sided conversation.
And I guess the other one would be Yuumi, because hangs out with a lot of people. He's got a bit of an engage towards the bottom side, but it's slow. He's got the Eclipse there, and also had the Aftershock, so not going to be taking too much. There's the turnaround, but Arcane Shift. Pretty good ability, despite the fact that it has lost a little bit of that cooldown.
Yeah, and it's an interesting 2v2, right? Leona obviously wants to keep doing this sort of stuff. Like, you get on top of the Rakan, the Q immediately. If he goes in, he kind of dies on the return once you hit that level 6 mark. But in terms of the junglers right now, Steel is down here. Gragas in absolute Narnia on the other side of the map. Like, looking for any forward plays right now for Isurus will be difficult. And not to mention the Combat Summit as well. They have the TP, they do have the Ignite. The Cleanse is there from Udapon, so just trying to keep himself safe, but Xayah maybe in a little bit of trouble here, but floating the correct side of the map.
Yep, he is going to be at least heading up towards his Vision and his Jungler. Speaking of junglers, Oddie is on the Gragas, and it's the first time we've seen it today. Of course, was nerfed in 9.19, which is probably good. He was extraordinarily dominant.
Super
on
busted.
9.16, yeah. Busted as heck. I believe, was it you that coined the better Lee Sin?
No, that was not me.
That wasn't you?
This is one of those situations where you would have loved me to say yes.
Yeah, I mean,
but
you could have lied, couldn't you? Come on, man.
It's just not it.
No. So I think that was Jake talking to Spooks about that one. Gragas was certainly in just a state of a lot of happiness on 9.16. But do you think the nerfs have changed him enough?
Not particularly. Like, I'm not surprised to see him here. He definitely needed them, but certainly isn't out of contention by any means. Like, the rise of Echo changes things somewhat. The priority is a little bit out of whack, but certainly still a very good champion. Oddie is well-versed. Is actually one of his most played. That and Skarner over the course of the domestic season. And it makes a lot of sense, right? Like, this is a team that likes to play, like, around the lanes, is much more of a facilitative jungler. He gets stuck soloing a Mountain Dragon while his lane is pushing just because they play with the tempo, they play with the pressure, and don't look to force things super early, and this is exactly what's happening here today.
Yep, well, Evie is shoving in onto this Gnar over and over again, but yeah, has been completely drained of the mana. Boomerang Blade is going to land. Buggax just gets himself another grass proc and will send Kayle home. Not going to chase down at this stage, but Evie's done a great job so far. Only 4 CS behind, but does have that Klepto and is Kayle, which is the main thing that you've got to think about. Steel parallel convergence is in there, but Sayer's pretty comfortable. And if we have a look down the line when it comes to the farm, it's bottom side of the map for DFM that's looking absolutely fantastic, but elsewhere, it's pretty comfortable for everyone. And if this game stays even, who is that benefiting?
It's an interesting question, right? Because the comps do very different things. Yeah, like the Zyra Khan, and you have the shield comp, can be super oppressive from ahead. Like, if this transitions, they get to 3 items, crit 80 carry. Yes, versus the Ezreal, like, there are engage options with the Leona, but it's definitely much more down to playstyle, right? Like, I think Isurus certainly want to be playing the map much more. DFM, they want to get to their item break points. They just want to shield heads, look for the team fights, and play much more around the objectives. Like, if this is a super slow game, and I was mentioning before, like, that is kind of what you expect and what we haven't seen yet in the World's play-in so far, but yeah, like Rift Herald Prio, like Dragon Spawns, it's just an Ocean here today, not like an Infernal or anything, but certainly very good in the early game, but really nobody setting priority on it so far just yet. As I say that though, DFM linking up quite nicely, jungler support looking for a bit of invade on the blue buff here. Yep,
and I think we should probably expect this quite often. Rakan and Echo, best friends crew, trying to get around the map and get opponents caught out unawares. But Steel is going to achieve his namesake here with the takeaway on the blue buff. Pretty good to deny that one from Saya. He's boom at the moment. Would have really liked the blue buff.
It feels actually pretty bad there. Gragas actually just shepherding a recall in the mid lane. Oddie and Saya, long-time duo. Given that Seros was just sitting there pushing, he has mana, and as you mentioned, Saya absolutely does not. Doesn't have TP either, but this does mean, with all the vision control they have on the bot side, a dive is coming. Oddie in the area.
Well, Steel and Seros are around, but Slow comes in from the barrel. Oddie's going to be safe and is just going to stand there as a living ward. Buggax gets the push back, and he's ahead by a few CS, but gang, are you going to be all right? Yep, should be fine. Steel is there in the river as well. So we got a lot of posturing so far as the Ocean Drake has been started. Good body slam comes in there as Steel doesn't necessarily know what he wants to be doing here, as the Dragon's going to once again get upset. Phase dive over the wall, waits for it to come off cooldown. True shot barrage,
flash ult,
has to use the ultimate to get out of the way. He used the flash as well.
Yes, flashed on the spot.
I feel like you only needed to use one of those as he dashes around and that Steel falling down. First blood going over to Oddie for ISG, but I have to feel like that was mostly a mistake.
Yeah, just a disastrous scenario. And I was going to say, that's like almost Tom Kench syndrome. Like, do I pop the grey health? Do I not? It was such a weird situation to be in. And he just panics, and Ezreal ulti comes flying in from stage right, flashes on the spot, ulti's back into danger, and Oddie bonks him on the head, cleans him up.
Yeah, I think that's a fat finger, if ever I've seen one. However, we don't necessarily know. We're going to have a look at it one more time as Steel, phase dive, off cooldown, nice.
Yep.
And then,
that hurts.
It does.
That hurts. An Ocean Dragon, likely one of the worst dragons to be stuck in the pit with, you know? Even Oddie is copying it on the way out. The slow, the damage.
And also you get nothing if you kill it.
Yeah.
It just feels bad all over the place. So, Isurus have been gifted a kill in this early game. DetonatioN FocusMe still have a composition that can recover from this. Not the end of the world by any means. 600 gold is going to be the lead here for Isurus Gaming after that first blood goes down. As Slow just walks at them. That's the flash. Daybreak does come down, but Udapon goes up into the sky. And Slow not going to be able to offer any more after Seiya made his way down with the Realm Warp. They just wander out.
Steel.
Okay, Oddie finds a nice body slam. Steel getting taken down. So Luxury Chopper again! Can't dodge it this time! Doesn't have either of those cooldowns, of course.
A sliver of a CDR bar there from the Echo ulti, and he cannot find it. So 2 times in a row, Latin American sniper here, cleaning up a couple of kills, and now Oddie finds his way to the Dragon. And I was going to say, this is kind of what you expect, right? The slow early game, you ding that level 6 mark, then you have the Rakan, then you have the Leona. Oddie himself is almost one-tapping the Echo. This is where the game really turns on, and Isurus already 2 kills and an Ocean Dragon. This laning phase is only getting better and better right now, and Steel just struggling to make an impact again on the Echo we see today.
Yep. Probably going to see some sort of reset here from Isurus Gaming, but maybe we'll look towards Shelly for our next objective. Still going to be re-clearing his jungle here, and haven't seen any funny business just yet. Of course, DetonatioN they need to clean up their play, but otherwise things will be all right. Evie's just sitting there telling his team, like, guys, please don't feed. I'm KO. We're going to be fine.
Eventually, he's going to get there. But certainly is an eventuality a long time away. You can see, as you mentioned, maybe Rift Herald next on the cards. Absolutely is going to be the case. Reset from slow into instant Moby boots. Also has a Hex Flash, which I super like, especially in the bot lane 2v2. Like, you burn the flash, you burn the cleanse. They could just keep fishing for these fights that they wanted. So it takes a little trek onto top side towards the Rift Herald. With that prio in the top lane, it is difficult to start straight away, but setting vision is definitely the first step in ISG thinking about it.
Yep. I'm looking at this comp, and Seiya, he's almost towards his Rod of Ages. Looks to be the first item that he's going to lock down. Going for that double scaling with the tier there, of course. We've seen a few rises recently opt away from the Rod of Ages, but Seiya going full greed, which I respect.
And there is, like, the 2 different variants. The more standard one, then you have, like, the Righteous Glory, the tanker one. We saw actually picked into Saros on the Nocturne earlier today. Righteous Glory completed, gives you armor to deal with it. Could be an option here. There's not... Actually, maybe not. There is a reasonable amount of AP damage, where Udapon being like the one big AP threat here, but DFM...
Yeah, it is a little bit dangerous. I mean,
shields.
Looking at what everyone has to be responsible for as we move into this game, I think this mid-game's looking really good for Isurus Gaming. They've got the Gnar ultimate that is so pivotal around a lot of these skirmishes that are in either Shelly's pit or the Dragons. In this case, most likely Shelly's, and then Ryze can get to that machine gun stage, especially now that level 9 has been hit. Not necessarily able to get that shield anymore, but is still just a powerhouse when it comes to AoE damage.
Yeah.
And that's what this comp can do. They can keep people locked down or bring someone to them, and then a rune prism, whether it's a rune or a slow, doesn't matter. It's going to be that kill setup anyway. So Oddie and Slow will have a lot of agency when it comes to deciding on what fights are going to happen, because the Ryze and the Gnar are going to be so able to follow up. And then they don't need to worry about War Angelus because he can just self-peel.
He's just chilling. He's just chilling in the back. I think, interestingly, this game, right, like in terms of, yes, it's just slow. Okay, ulti for ulti. But Oddie is here. Predator has been popped. Flash like 5 seconds from cooldown, but they're still looking for the dive.
Yeah, we're going to find the barrel into the wall. Udapon underneath the turret now, as Isurus Gaming not going to go for the dive. Feathers are going to be pulled back, the teleport is channeled, and Saros makes his way down and stops his friends from being destroyed.
Yeah, and I was going to say, this map of League of Legends in this game has felt so big. The lanes are kind of just isolated, no roaming between the two, but Isurus, as soon as that hit the 13-minute mark, still looking for the return dive. No cast, but Oddie's in.
Coming down. The quickness was there, but it is not enough. Saros now is going to be the dessert. Can they actually grab it? Slow's going to go down for the good of the colony, and Seiya misses the Q. Oh, no, it's a disaster. Saros with the outplay under the Atatar bottom lane, and the fadeaway jump shot barrel is not going to be enough, and the Mystic shot goes wide. What a disaster.
That looked like complete disaster there for DFM, but Saros comes up clutch. The Mantra W, so much healing off the back end, and multiple members just go down, dying to the turret.
Yeah. I think that was the themes, because he got all of that health back instantly as well. Damn. All right, well, I mean, we were talking about potential tilters for Mammoth in the last game. That's a potential tilter there on the bottom side. We'll see whether Isurus Gaming can pull it back.
Yeah. And I think specifically for the map state right there, if that gank is successful, the dive happens, Isurus set that up very well. Like, the play by the playbook was very smart, very well thought out, just execution blundered, right? Like, they don't get the damage, Seros cleans up and it's fine, but Steel was on the other side of the map. There was no way he was going to be relevant in that play. Picking on Bugax in the top side, like, he's pretty safe, full HP, Mega Gnar, reasonably hard to dive. Evie and Steel could have made it work, but in a very slow game, it is like a game of inches. Like, what can you take? How much does that mean down the line for a champion like the Rise, for the Ezreal? And Seros standing tall here. It's definitely a big swing back for this one.
Yeah, let's have a look at it one more time from Seros' perspective.
Nice flash. Very, very good. Dodging out. Start a step on the Rise. Q coming flying out. Dodges the Ezreal and the second one as well. Third onto the Rise. Seros on a Karma. This isn't an Akali. It's not an Aurelia just dancing all over the place. He's just fancy feeding all over Isurus, and that's sick.
Yeah, he certainly locked that one down. But you have to say that a lot of it had to do with ISGs. We've got another engage. Zenith played towards the bottom side. Great grand entrance there as Slow is being caught out, and he ain't going anywhere. Udapon locks down that kill as Rangelis has to get out of there. Arcane Shift utilized, in comes Steel. Phase Dive is there, and he's going to be taken down as well, and DFM have come alive.
And the complete turnaround of the map. Yes, Steel will go down, but that was the 5-man commit to the bottom side. They want to make something happen. We are after 14 minutes. 15:30 on the clock means that plating is long gone. Turrets are fairly squishy, and actually looking for the return there. Slow and Warangalis, they were looking for that play. Now Saya in trouble, gets knocked up underneath the turret.
Yeah, it's a disaster. Udapon's going to be able to grab that kill for himself, and now this outer turret should be falling down. Likely a trade as Bugax is on the top side of the map, taking down the outer there as well. But when your mid laner dies at the same time and you're up against a Kayle, it is a really dangerous time to be Isurus Gaming here on this map. And here we go. This is full tank Gnar as well. They've understood that they need to play for these team fights, have some of that front line there and rely on the Ezreal and the Rise damage. But I'm worried that that's going to be enough when it comes to AD, because we were looking at Gnar as being able to augment the Ezreal that's very pokey, not necessarily a large amount of physical damage because it's so split amongst the magic and the physical. That is a full tank Gnar with the Sunfire Cape just completed.
And I think the bigger thing is, given the last 5 minutes of play, I've mentioned it multiple times, like how much defensive stats DFM will opt into. The shields will be very difficult to break through when you mentioned Gnar going full tank. He has a Sunfire, he's got a Raincoat, and Rise already sitting 0-2. He's a long way away from being relevant, and breaking through the Rakan, breaking through the Karma in the later stages. If you are like a defensive composition and the opponent like has to be forcing into you, it can be very difficult to break through that sort of Vanguard there. And as this one progresses, it looked good for Isurus in the early game, but DFM completely swinging on the bottom side of the map.
Yep. Now Warangelis is looking to try and take down this outer turret. It's going to be a nice injection of gold there as Isurus do still have an advantage. Just sidesteps out of that grand entrance there as Oddi's made his way down here. 3 versus 3 is prepared. And Steel's looking to try and take down this ward. They do so comfortably.
All junglers in the area, but the big thing is cleanse down from Udapon. Maybe another minute on the cooldown-ish, but that is what made the turnaround happen, right? Slow land at the CC, but Zaya Rakan.
All right, we're going to find the barrel. Bugax makes his way in, nowhere near Mega Gnar, and he's underneath the turret right now as Steel gets himself towards it. Oddie goes golden, now still very, very low, but the good sidestep on all those abilities. Evie flashing forward, and now the Kayle has joined the game. Bugax finally towards the Mega Gnars. Now they're looking for the turn. Will he get there? He'll press the R button and only find the air, and Evie decides to turn on it. Now it's their turn underneath turrets, but Detonation FocusMe won't push too far.
And every single dive is just being turned around by DFM. They're just sitting, standing tall. Mid-turret will break. Warangalis finally gets to the play, but a little bit too late there. And Oddie Burnt's stopwatch just dies in the play. Another kill over to the Kayle. DFM are completely ramping up in this one.
Yep, 2-0-0 now on this Kayle. Sort of gifted those few kills in that skirmish that came to him in the mid lane. That is exactly what you don't want if you're an Isurus Gaming fan. This is Detonation FocusMe that feels like they've shaken their sillies out, you know, after that first loss. That first loss was not a good one. That's not a good feels loss because they were basically out of the game for the majority of it, right? When you're forced to dive with that mid-nocturne, things like that, it makes it a lot more difficult. But now they've got a composition that's more of a, hey, you guys come to us and we'll just kill you.
And that makes sense, right? Like, think about it a little bit big picture. Splice, the #1 seed in this group. They come from the major region. Maybe looking at this one, they're like, let's throw a Hail Mary. Let's go super aggressive. Let's get the Nocturne, dive the backline into... That was a difficult comp, right? There was the Xayah that you had to get on the Rakan and the Cannon. And this game, in a more comparable opponent, DFM have played Isurus Gaming before. They're like, let's take it back to what we have done best. In the LJL, like, DFM are already a slow team in a relatively slow region. This is exactly what they wanted in an early game. All of their advances this game have come from a reaction. Like, Isurus look for the dive, and they're always there with a very swift punish. And now they're in a good position going into mid lane. They have, mid-game rather, 2 item spikes on almost all of their carries right now, just waiting on the rapid-fire upgrade there from Udapon, and they're sitting pretty to head into the mid-game.
Yeah, we don't even have Seraph completed here from Saya as well as Evie. Could be a gank opportunity. Good boomerang is going to land. Can Bugex actually survive for long enough? But he's got that tanky build. He might just be able to. Ult comes down. Evie. Oh, the layering of CC is beautiful. True Shot Barrage gets rid of the Kale. But now, in goes King. That's a huge knock-up with the grand entrance onto Forest. Udapon has the Feather Storm out, and it is a storm on the top side. DetonatioN FocusMe have found everyone. Saya now looking for steal, and he is going to be able to pick that one up as now Rangulas. Can you actually get the work done? Yes, he can find the kill, but he does eventually get taken down. A beautiful team fight, but a sloppy one on both sides. DFM come out ahead.
And just as the clock dinged 20, it looked like a complete wipe, but ISG, Saya and Warangalas keep the dreams alive. If that was a wash, that could have been Baron. That could have almost been lights out. But here, 1v2 still looking.
The tether. Good knock up there from the grand entrance. And Saya knew he was dead. And he's just going to go down. The Karma picks up that kill. And I love this look out of Saros. I never say this, right? I never say that I love a Karma at any stage. We have a look at the replay. But this suits his playstyle so much better.
And just so many resources committed onto a Kale. And a Kale that has a stopwatch at the end of the day. Slow goes in as the second phase on this play, and the bottom lane from DFM, Udapon and Gang come in from the side, 4-man knock-up onto basically everyone. And at this point, you were like, that's Baron, that is DFM running away with this one, but a little bit split off. You can see Gang happy feeding between the two. He's like, do I go forwards? Do I help my mid laner running back? And unfortunately, that is going to cost the Xayah life, and they have to chase down Ryze at the end of the day. But in all honesty, that was such a big play. It continuously is being Isurus Gaming throwing themselves at DFM, and they're always there with a response.
This mid-game Ezreal, though, is getting the work done.
He's
that
popping.
1v1 that he sort of isolated himself for against Udapon was certainly won by him on the back end, despite not very many buttons being available for the Xayah. You can see it in the damage numbers. This is what this team plays around almost every single time. DFM, to a certain extent, do the same thing. They play around either Udapon or Evie in most of their victories. There's a bit hyphy. Both of these teams looking at one another. A party cask flies into the mid lane.
Yeah. Just fishing for an opportunity. Non-committal engage, kind of a plenty here for Isurus. They have the Leona, can just throw ulti. They have the Gragas, he can just throw ulti, as he did. And the Ezreal is doing significant damage from afar. Dragon's going to be the easy prize, uncontested here by the Japanese team. But you saw that single Q from the Ezreal.
Yeah.
He's almost at a balk. That's going to be 3 item spikes. We've been mentioning, like, DFM, as this progresses further and further, they are in a good spot. Warangalas, he's in a good spot. Individually, this guy is primed and ready, and you saw the back end of that team fight can make the damage stick, and certainly a threat here for DFM.
There is an opportunity. You're exactly right. I'm glad that you brought up the itemization for these AD carries, because I feel like as Udapon, while he doesn't have his Infinity Edge, Warangalas is going to be feeling way better in this particular matchup. But once that third item does come in for the Xayah, it feels like it's all downhill for what the Ezreal can offer in these team fights if you're comparing just DPS between the two. So Isurus Gaming, despite the fact that team fights haven't necessarily been going their way, they are completely tied up in gold. And they have an Ezreal that's in a really good spot for this stage of the game.
And map state right now, the reset coming from DFM, they just walk top. They have infinite Baron Prio. They have all the vision around the objective. Not a lot of pink wards, and DFM are likely going to push up mid and try and sweep some of that out, but they've got the side lanes already pushing. You can see Saya and Odi, long-time duo, pushing out the top side together, then maybe rotating towards the play. Finding any sort of catch will be a huge prize for them, but DFM now looking to walk towards the Baron buff.
Yep, need to clear out a whole lot of vision here, as Isurus Gaming have certainly done a better job putting down their vision buttons. Rift Scuttler will go over to DFM as they have slowed down quite a lot. This has given Isurus a chance to find more of that standing gold on the map, hoover up a few more of these red dots. as we go further and further. Of course, DFM not too worried given their composition, but I'm a little bit worried given the fact that they did have a lead and they haven't been necessarily pushing it.
Yeah, I think the big worry is the map state right now. The 1-3-1 well and truly set up for Isurus, and the hardest part of this style of comp is actually getting into the deployment, getting the side lanes in a reasonable position where they actually have priority, they have some pressure, and if they force in the mid lane, you do have a port of call, a response, and you saw off that full reset from DFM, they got the Baron control, they got the vision, and now they're fine. Saya just pushing bouncing waves topside. Seros wants absolutely nothing to do with the rise. Like, he's been popping off defending these dives, but in a 1v1, Saya will want rampant over that one. The Ardent Sensor, you're definitely not looking for any sort of solo play, so it is much more the onus here on DFM to group up, find some picks, maybe get gang into the backline and find and engage onto the Ezreal, which is a difficult and enough task of itself, but yeah, Isurus in a very even position right now.
But it's going to go from even to very uneven quite quickly, is what it feels like to me. Because as soon as 5 members of DetonatioN FocusMe group up, once the Kayle has something like an Infinity Edge to augment this build, another Infinity Edge comes in for Udapon, and then an E's pressed by Seros.
Feels good.
It feels real good if you're DetonatioN FocusMe, not so good if you're Isurus Gaming.
And the things you're kind of alluding to, right? Like the level 16, very close to being hit heavy, just dinged the level 15 mark. And one of the biggest problems on the map right now for Isurus is that mid lane standing. They've lost theirs, so when the wave pushes in, they lose Prio, goes so deep back into their territory, and the ward line has to be multi-stepped, right? Yeah. Like, you move it up, it's a reset, you move it up a little bit further, and then you get the Baron control. And this has just been basically 5 minutes from that last topside team fight where they've just been ebb and flowing of League of Legends. Like, playing by the playbook, we just concede vision, allow you to take it, and then we push in the side lane. And
something you need to practice is we call it the ping pong.
The ping pong.
Okay, so when you join, it's ping pong. Okay.
Sure. Yeah, ebb and flow's already taken.
Yeah,
Nami's got that one on lock.
That's a Nami one, yeah.
Yeah. She's all about it.
Or the sploosh. I like the sploosh because it does certainly do a bit of splooshing, the old ebb and flow.
I don't like the sploosh.
You don't like the sploosh?
I'm not fan. I'm not about that one at all. That's fine.
You gave me a very quizzical look when I said sploosh. I liked it. All right, Bugax in a side lane, doing that 1-3-1 thing like we were talking about. It's not the play ram. I wanted to talk about the play ram, but we haven't had it. Isurus Gaming a stalwart in their 1-3-1 play. And not really too many answers have come out of DetonatioN FocusMe as far as what they're going to pressure on the other side of the map. They're just waiting for minion waves to be pushed towards them.
And they kill them.
Yep, and then they do it again.
Everybody walks away. Also, Isurus got their hands on the crab top side. See the vision line for DFM, really not extended very far. So this is a team, like we were saying, we're talking about the ramp multiple times. We've been talking about Evi, but they're not looking to pressure it in the slightest. Still kind of looking for something onto Bugax here, though. Does have the dash to get himself over the wall.
Crushes his way up there.
Fine.
Easy peasy. Slow now, maybe in a precarious spot. But that barrel did a hell of a lot of damage. Udapon, yeah. Pressing that R button out of fear, and the cast comes down to really chunk him out of this fight. Gang has to grand enter the underside of his turret, and Isurus Gaming do finally get rid of that outer in the mid lane.
And that's the thing, right? No kill. Udapon lives at the end of the day, does have to burn the flash, but such a good play from the jungle support duo there. Leona ulti goes out, sets up beautifully for the cask, and Udapon has to pay the price. And now the map state gets a little bit easier to play. If DFM have shown they don't want to play aggressive, they don't want to force anything in terms of that, then Isurus, they could just keep taking this one. They've got 3 dragons after this one in their back pocket. Double Ocean if they want to play the side lane. That is super useful. And in this game, like, comp-wise, interesting, but Isurus just seem like they're doing more on the map.
And they also look like they understand how their comp is supposed to work, just that little bit better than what DFM do. Because DFM now have all of the Exodia completed, right? They've got Infinity Edges galore, they've got the Athenes and the Ardent Sensor, and now it should be that DFM feel like these teamfight gods, that they can set up for these Kayle and Xayah DPS numbers that are just out of control, but it looks like they're just milling about. Like, they don't necessarily understand how to grab themselves these opportunities. And it means that Isurus have been able to get around. They've been diligent. They've got all their vision. They've been sticking to this 1-3-1, and they've just picked up more and more money as this game's gone on.
And I think the real scary thing for Isurus is, like, how do we progress the game? We've been taking inches for 28 minutes, right? They've got the dragons, they've got the turrets, they're just pushing in the side lane consistently. CS advantages are starting to become relevant, right? You have 40 in the mid lane, you have almost 40 in the bot side as well, probably closer to 30 there, but in terms of, like, how do we break the base? Baron is the super obvious choice, but they don't want to force a 5v5. They want the map to feel large. They want to play the side lanes. If they get all 10 members on one screen like this, here it is.
Trouble. He's going to get taken down relatively low, but slow. Starts the engage on Isurus' side. Steel in the backline. Slow still surviving, but Evie joins up. The Divine Judgment was there to start this fight, not to end it. Doesn't actually find anyone, though. The disengage is so strong from Isurus Gaming. They're picking them off on the sidelines. No one to fall down on either side.
And how did that team fight end in a crab being taken? That was a super big battle in the mid lane.
Who won the fight?
Yeah, Flashes got burnt, no deaths all over the place, but it is actually going to be Isurus that picked that one up, so still maintaining this Baron control topside, and just as I was saying it, that is the scary part of the game. The game feels safe for them if they just sit in the side lanes, but that was them committing to the play. Bugax rotates down, they were looking for that fight, they go in and engage that one, and DFM...
They go for a reset, got a couple of extra wards there. DFM now in the mid lane, this is the play ram. We're doing it. It's the 4-1 though, and it is Evie in a side lane. We mentioned this before. It's very difficult for anyone to go up against him, but I think DFM just need to try and do more in the 4, right? Like, these 4 members need to try and counteract the 1-3-1, and that's by having a 4 versus 3 that they can actually add pressure to. With Evie in a side lane, that's going to be a good matchup no matter who they put up against him. So you understand how DFM is supposed to play this out, but they've been very slow in recognizing that.
And it seems like a very intentional choice, in all honesty, right? Like, they can very easily, and I think they will be doing it now, throw Evie into Rise, because Saya is the one threat that will make progress in a side lane. Evie now sitting on TP, like that summoner is available, so it's not like they do have a numbers mismatch, and he breaks. Top turret resets, now going to do a similar thing on the bottom side, and if he can become a super big threat, just consistently pushing in bottom lane, and we've seen ISG already, they're willing to throw resources to look to pick the side lanes. If they do that fail, that is almost lights out. It's Baron for DFM. They just clean up everything, but right now that's not going to be the situation. Saya actually grouping over and ISG looking to set up strictly around the Baron.
Well, parallel convergence finds Bugax, but he is not too worried there at all. Has his Warmogs completed. Like you say, the Raincoat, or the Spectre's Cowl, as some would call it. Not entirely sure who would. Raincoat's much better. True Shot Barrage coming on in, just going to hit some minions, and now the engagers come forward. It's a decent hop, though, as Bugax is so incredibly tanky. Another party cask here in the mid lane finds no one, and now Evie looking to chase down. But this tanky Gnar build, man, I feel like Gnar is baiting everyone because he's not supposed to be that hard to kill.
Is he baiting his own team? That Gragas cask definitely went into Narnia. Unfortunately, the button's not landing, but still looking to bait the Baron buff. DFM walking in. ISG maintain the vision control, but fighting back right now. Mega is going to be popped. Bugax has flash if he wants to go for it.
Yeah, crushes forward, but decides not. Oh, that's another one. Doesn't find the Gnar button and will get knocked up with that grand entrance. Thankfully, still a very tanky boy.
Yutapon.
Now they may have found Yutapon there on the backside, like you mentioned. Is just going to pop the ultimate and get out of there. Another key cooldown. Not available as Evie. He can't do that. He can't run straight in to Evangelist like this. Because this dude's got a bloodthirst and double lifesteal on the airs. He's so strong.
And it's just a standoff. Whoever Kayle is hitting just has to run away. And the same can be said for the Ezreal. Both of these teams have one big threat to play around. And Isurus, they want to speed the game up. They've been starting around this Baron for a long time. The cooldowns are not there.
Not only want to play for the fight. On Steel as well. He does have the ultimate. He can Chrono Break his way out of things.
Oh, the classic.
The disengage.
The classic disengage. Got to catch the side lanes. Bot will push into them eventually. Top is a fairly large wave as well, but it does open up the opportunity into the mid lane you see right now. Do they stick around for turret pressure?
You can see Bugax and Oddie are here, but the Mantrid Inspire is going to do a whole lot of good work. The hop into the crush is going to be there, and another cask is going to go completely wide. Bit of a disaster here for Oddie, to be honest. Hasn't found too many of those casts. Now we're going for a potential dive, but Evie on the front line, not as tanky as he'd otherwise want to be. They are going to be able to make their way out, though, and having this Karma on the roster is just... it's a bit gross.
Frustrating.
Yeah.
Frustrating. And I think the best word to describe how these fights are happening is, like, hesitation. Both of these teams know, like, one error just gets chomped by the enemy carry, and then it's lights out. It's Baron. The game snowballs incredibly easy once either of them have Baron. They just set up, force up mid lane, play a couple of waves, and certainly for a very even game. We've had nothing more than like a 2,000 gold lead for the entirety here, and then you do have these non-committal buttons. Steel keeps throwing himself in there because he knows he can just ulti backwards. Slow and Oddie, yes, like a bunch of these ultis are missing, but they're just fishing for an opportunity. They can't just straight up commit onto Udapon or anything like that because gets cleansed, he's fine. We've seen the disengage that can happen, so they're just kind of fishing for ultis. Eventually, something will land. That's like the classic old school Nidalee. That champion, you just like full AP. Like, you land a spear, you feel like the greatest player in the world. It's like, well, you threw 54 before that. So the 55th one.
Hey, but if you're not throwing them, you miss every spear you don't throw.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. They're just throwing them. Eventually, something will connect, and that could be the Baron fight we've been longing for like 14 minutes.
We almost had a Baron fight before, but now it's the play ram. And unfortunately, if you say the name, then it eventually does happen, guys. And I think that's my jinx. It is the issue here. True Shot Barrage once again going to come in. It's going to get rid of a shield and otherwise not do any more than that.
Yeah, gone are the days of the Ludens Ezreal. That just like one hits an entire team before the fight even happens.
I know, it was a lot of gameplay to that particular Ezreal, you know? Press an R button as it comes off cooldown every 15 seconds or something like that.
Feels good.
Yeah, it wasn't so great. As triple Ocean Drake now has been picked up by Isurus Gaming. Probably would have preferred those to be Infernals, but not going to happen this game, as next is going to be...
Oh, okay.
The Elder Drake. 35 minutes, the Baron is down to half health. DetonationFocusMe do a lot of damage to this objective right now as Realm Warp is going to get Sayer around here. The pull off is Steel very, very low, but the quickness dives on in. Gang gets out. The Divine Judgment is going to be there. The hop into the Crush and Bug Axe is going to be safe for the moment. The re-engage from Slow, but Evie is still at True Shot Barrage is going to take him down to his Guardian Angel, and where Angelus is still at full health. Finally, Udapon finds himself a kill as the resurrection comes through from his GA, and where Angelus finds the extra kills in the back end. This could be it. He's so big, so much lifesteal. Goes down very, very low and isn't going to be taken just yet, as the Mantra Q is going to go just wide. Honey Fruit is delicious and will keep the Ezreal afloat for now, as Sayer and Slow are looking for Gang and Seros. DetonationFocusMe, they need
Look
to try
at the Ocean Dragon. So much HP back.
We keep discounting it, but it's a great Drake. Don't you worry about it. But these Inspires are working out well. That is a decent Zenith Blade. And the last two kills come in. It's a very delayed one, but it's an ace nonetheless.
But Isurus are finally going to make it work. They've been fishing for these team fights for a very long time, and it's actually DFM that give it to them. They start up the Baron, and it's a complete wash here. Ace across the board, and now triple Ocean Dragon. They've had complete control of that side of the map. Now add a Baron to the mix. Rangelis is popping off. ISG, they're on the up and up.
Certainly are. Let's have a look at this fight once more. The Ezreal, just keep your eye on him because he doesn't take very much damage at the beginning of this one.
And you have to think about where Gang started this fight. They blew the Kayle ulti to keep him alive because he got spotted on the flank. The idea was there, a big combo can maybe seal the deal for this one, but this is another Ezreal ulti, snipes on the backline, and keep your eyes on that, man. He's sitting on the flank of the left right now. He's about to eat flash into like multiple people as they're committing for the kills onto like Oddie and Slow on the back end. He goes forwards over the top, and Isurus, they just completely follow up, chase them down. Stagger the recalls is another important thing, right? Like, yes, it's an ace, but there's 30 seconds disconnect between DFM's any sort of response, and Isurus now in complete control of this game.
Really nice stuff here from Isurus Gaming, as we're going to have the full replay as Gang and Seros watch their demise come towards them ever so slowly.
This is sadness. There's nowhere to go. Shields from Seros to try and keep the Rakan alive on the sliver of HP, but just get chomped. Now the mid lane under pressure.
Come back to life, yeah. DFM lose their inner turret as Bug Axe are going to get slowed by the ultimate out of the Leona. A cask is going to land, but only onto Gang, so it's going to be fine for DFM for the moment. Isurus Gaming just getting that poke in off the side of this one. Sayer is gigantic. He's got the coolest hat and a pretty sweet book there as well. Thankfully, LS not here to get upset about it. And Mortal Reminder is completed from Rangelis, and he's doing about as much damage as he can possibly do.
Heavy though.
At this stage.
Yeah, was looking for the 1v1. Actually forces the Arcane Shift back over the wall, but cop the worst end of the trade. Ezreal now safe, and they have the triple Ocean Dragon looking to knock on the door of the base. Look at the gold grab.
Yeah,
that went one way very fast, and now base broken. 38 minutes. This is a long one, but as soon as the Baron was taken here by Isurus, it's continuing forwards.
It's just really impressive play with a composition that shouldn't necessarily be this strong against what DFM have at this stage of the game, given just who Kale is and who the Zyre is. We've got another fight. It's going to break out. Solar Flare is going to go relatively wide as Evie throws down the Judgment and immediately gets destroyed. Where Angelus now will just find Mystic Shot after Mystic Shot. Gang is going to be the next one on the chopping block. He's got a big shield, but Angelus doesn't care. He just murders him underneath his Nexus turrets. A double kill as a sneaky Mystic Shot flies in. And now it's only Nexus turrets between Isurus Gaming and a Game 1 victory here at Worlds Plays.
Still the only member left alive. Nexus turret's going to fall, but that is going to be it. Isurus going to start this one off with a 1-0 scoreline. Very good start to the play-ins here.
Yep, making Jake Spawn Tiberi look a little bit better there on the analyst desk as well. Congratulations to the Latin Americans. This is the super team from the two combined Latin America North and Latin America South regions. And they have proven it here today. Really beautiful stuff from these guys. And I just love how controlled it was.
Yeah. Well, in two facets, right? Because the early game was a lot of forcing. They're looking for the dive, constantly getting countered by DFM, and we kind of saw two different iterations of Isurus. They recognized that DFM, they were giving them space.
Yeah.
Let's take that space. Yes, they may have a Kale and stuff like that, but we have Orangelis, the big AD carry for this team. They play around it. We've mentioned it so many times, absolutely popping off in the endgame team fights, and eventually lead somewhat squandered there in a very even game. They eventually find the fight that they were looking for, and as soon as they had the advantage, that was just lights out, game over very quickly.
Yep. Really good play here from these guys, even though they were up against a very farmed Kale. The fact that we got to our Infinity Edges on both of our big carries on DFM's side, they just weren't able to outplay in these team fights. And I think that full tank Gnar, man, something about full tank Gnar that just worked extraordinarily well for Isurus Gaming.
They were just looking at it, they needed frontline, pick up a bunch of tanky items. And there were so many times where DFM were just like right-clicking him. Right? And he's just dashing away. Like normally it's the double hop into the big team fight ulti. You rip back everyone into your team, but that was not what we saw. It was kind of a distraction at times to open up space for the rest of the lineup. And once the space was there, they just ran away with it.
Yeah, exactly. And DFM had some really good moments. We can have a look again. We'll bring up the replay of Gang's 4-man Rakan knock-up during the top lane fight, man. Like, there were certainly moments of brilliance for this DFM roster as well.
And that has to be the frustrating thing about this game, right? Like, if this team fight went a different way, this is Baron. That's a complete ace there onto Isurus, and maybe DFM pick up a victory. They don't start off with a 0-2. This is going to be a very frustrating end to this day, but a little bit too split off, opening up space there for their opponents, and yeah, it's certainly a roughie.
It is certainly a roughie. You know, I've employed that one as well over your new home in the LCK. I like it a lot. But yeah, Ruffy does explain how this one went for DFM, especially after the mid-game, because they were punished for not doing enough with the leads that they were sort of gifted.
You know my favorite thing about that replay?
What's your favorite thing about that replay?
You don't actually get to see the big 4-man, like the 5-man combos from Rakan anymore. Now that you can't like ulti flash immediately, those opportunities are very slim. They don't come up very often, but unfortunately they're squandered by DFM. Isurus going to have a rough start, but certainly able to close that one out. Look at that damage.
As an LCK commentator, I do recognize graphs like this with the disgusting Ezreal damage, but I didn't know that that was anywhere else. Certainly is in Latin America, because damn. Where Angelus, you can see why this squad plays around him. And you look at this team, and if you've been watching Worlds and MSI for a long time, you probably recognize Sayo, recognize Odi from all of those qualifiers. But it's all about Orangelis, actually, as push comes to shove.
And I think the storyline with him and this roster is super interesting. Like, you have the veterans on this lineup in the Saya and Odi that you recognize. And when you think about LATAM 80 carries, you think of the likes of White Lotus. Right? And he was the former teammate of these guys.
And he's still really good.
That are now surrounding Orangelis. And he's a guy that, like, young player coming in, you don't often see like a team heavily just play towards that, right? That's a big risky move, and certainly paid off here. Damage charge was like 14k to 34, was the closest person on his team. Mid lane Rise like starts off 0-2. He was the one man that they needed to step up that game, and absolutely did. Yep,
congratulations to Isurus Gaming. When we return, OPL champions Mammoth look to go undefeated on day one as they face off against Clutch Gaming. Don't go anywhere.